Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Holding down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is on Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Got Casey Gaines and Jacob Beck back there on the ones and twos with you for 2 hours here on the Hunt Palmer Show. And now we've got a field set for Omaha, Nebraska in the College World Series. We'll get to that right now. In 15 minutes, I'll kind of talk you through the way this thing works from a scheduling perspective and the way that I would pitch this College World Series if I were Jay Johnson. Glenn West is going to be with us at 1:30. He met with Jay Johnson about 2 hours ago, part of the media, and they've talked to Gavin Guidry and I believe Jordan Thompson as well. So get Glenn fresh from the box there at 1:30 in his normal spot. Got some football recruiting news. Of course, the NBA Finals wrapped up last night. We'll chat with Sharif Ishak from WDSU at 2:30 in his normal spot. Usually we do a lot of New Orleans stuff with Sharif, and I will ask him about the Saints because they've got mini camp today, and there's always something going on with the NFL. But Sharif was on the field after the Super Regional, went final on Sunday night, and got a lot of really good content. I thought he had an awesome interview with Tommy White, where Tommy just talked about how much he loves LSU. He's an LSU Tiger till he dies, and this is the best place to play and all that kind of stuff. So excited to chat with Sharif coming up at 2:30 to go through all of that. But let's get to last night's action. First, starting in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I will be honest with you. Obviously, this was a pretty long weekend here in Baton Rouge. At the box a lot. And came to work yesterday, put in a full day. And I got to be perfectly blunt, at 10 o'clock, I was looking at that clock going, I don't think I have much more in me. So I did not watch the last 4 innings of Tennessee and Southern Miss. Just going to lay the cards on the table there. I just didn't have it in me. Had to get in bed, had to get some sleep. It's just that's the way that it went. If you stayed up and watched, I appreciate your effort. Thanks for scouting LSU's opponent. We'll get to some of that a little bit later. But Tennessee does win that Super Regional. The final last night was 5-0. I have said this about Tennessee for over a month now, even dating back to when they were 5-10. They're still not a team you want to play. They're just not. Clemson was as hot as anybody in college baseball, and when I saw that pop up as a 2 seed, I went, that could be a problem. Because they have got first-round picks all over that roster. And for some reason, some things have not clicked. Chase Dolander has not dominated week in, week out. Chase Burns couldn't get anybody out as a starter in the SEC. Blake Burke hitting around 200 in league play. Some of the guys on this roster haven't been what we thought they would be. Maui Ahuna's draft position has dropped since he left Kansas, where he hit 400 to come to the SEC. But that doesn't take away from the fact that they've got dudes in Knoxville. And Southern Miss got what they needed. In game 1, they did not send Tanner Hall out there, and they won the game. And at that point, you're sending your ace to the mound. Let's go. Let's go to Omaha. One last ride for Coach Barry. We've got our guy. And he got hit. And Chase Dolander, though he surrendered a 3-run home run late on Sunday, retired 18 out of 19 and got Tennessee to a game 3. And by the time Tennessee gets to a game 3, they've just got a decided pitching advantage. Drew Beam has not been lights out this year. Far from it at times. He was good against LSU. But he has not been lights out this year. He has not been as good as he was last year. But that doesn't take away from the fact that he throws 97 miles an hour. He was throwing a ferocious slurvy breaking ball last night in the early innings that I did watch. I was able to see his start because that was the beginning of the game, obviously. And then once he's done, they brought in Combs to get one strikeout. Then they hand the ball to Chase Burns and go, all right, buddy, get us home. And you've probably, even if you didn't stay up and watch last night, you saw the 102-mile-an-hour fastball he threw to get out of a jam in the 7th inning. And he ended up going 2 2/3, no runs, no hits, a walk and 4 strikeouts, and that's enough. And I didn't think Mazza threw poorly for Southern Miss when I watched him. And Adams' line is good. But Tennessee's ability deep into a weekend in game 3 to go to arms like Beam and Burns is not normal. It's a luxury for them, and it's why they're very, very good. I don't have any problem saying this whatsoever. None. I was pulling for Southern Miss last night. Yes, Tanner Hall is a good pitcher. He is very good. Southern Miss versus Paul Skeens and Tanner Hall versus LSU in Omaha, I'll take my chances. I'm going to take my chances with Paul Skeens against anybody. But if you're asking me to pick, I'll take Southern Miss over Tennessee. I wrote this in a column for On 3 earlier today. It said, whoever said to be the man, you've got to beat the man is an idiot. I'll just point you right down the hall to Georgia playing TCU for the national championship in football. They're going to take that trophy off the shelf because TCU wasn't any good? Nope. Saban's first championship against Texas, when Colt McCoy went out in the first half, they cut that trophy in half. Say, well, you won it, but Colt McCoy didn't play. No. To be the man, you just got to beat whoever shows up. And I'd rather Southern Miss show up than Tennessee. But that's not the case. Tennessee's going to show up. So we'll get into scouting the Vols as the week goes on. We'll chat with Ben McKee and try to rope up Chris Burke as well. But the Tennessee falls behind 1-0 in the Super Regional, and they're able to rattle off 2 in a row behind Dolander and Beam. A big swing by Zane Ditton last night, a 3-run homer to right center field was the one that Southern Miss couldn't respond to. And, once again, last year against Ole Miss, Southern Miss did not score a run in the Super Regional. This year against Tennessee, they get to a decisive game 3, literally cannot push a single run across. So Coach Perry with a heck of a run. That's a good team that they've got there. But they were outclassed by a better team the last 2 days of that Super Regional, and Tennessee wins it. So we'll see the Vols coming up on Saturday night under the lights in Omaha, 6 o'clock first pitch from Nebraska. The other game last night was Texas and Stanford. I did stay up for this one. I was fighting it. I was sitting on the couch. My eyes are rolling around, but I'm going, I need to see what I can do to watch this. And I'm glad I did, because that is an ending that you can see it and you can hear about it and you can react like, oh, man, that's unbelievable. Watching it live was a hell of a thing, because Stanford, the sequence of back-to-back at-bats in the 9th inning, it's nuts. Because you get the ball that's hit deep to left field with 2 outs, and it literally tracks over the white Pac-12 logo out there. So you lose sight of it, and the announcer says, it's gone! And then it bounces off the wall. The guy who hit it thinks he's hit a home run. He tosses his hat, his helmet, and then he's got to scamper into second base. And then you get the pop-up into the twilight. And, I mean, you could see this coming from 10 miles away. That ball's hit up in the air. The camera view changes to the outfield, and that center fielder does not move a muscle. And his arms go straight out by his hips. And the right fielder's not really moving either. And the second baseman's in a dead sprint, or shortstop's in a dead sprint, and nobody's even close to it. Lost it in the twilight. And if you were watching last weekend, which I was, A&M and Stanford, A&M lost 2 balls in the twilight. Wasn't why they lost the regional, but it happened twice. And this is why Texas lost the regional, because they're going to catch that baseball, and they're going to play on. And I don't know what Texas had left on the mound. They had gone back to their Friday night starter in Lucas Gordon, who had thrown over 100 pitches on Saturday and had come back on Monday to give him 28 more. But that is just as brutal a way. And what a helpless feeling to be standing there in center field, know that if this ball hits the ground, your season is over and you can't find it. I'm assuming if Stanford hosts a regional next year, some coach is going to take his outfielders out there at 8 o'clock p.m. Pacific time and just start launching a jugs machine up to center field, because no one can see the ball. I've never been to Sunken Diamond. I don't know what it looks like. I want to blame Stanford for not having proper lighting out there or whatever because you don't care enough about baseball to invest in your facilities. But it may just be that time of night, that part of the world. I don't know. I don't spend much time in Palo Alto. But that is just absolutely brutal. And so Stanford is going to join LSU and Tennessee and Wake Forest in one of the best brackets in recent history in Omaha. You're looking at, in terms of preseason top 10, 4 of the top 10 from D1 baseball, you're looking at as many wins as has been in a bracket since 2013. You're looking at a monster amount of first-round picks. Keith Law put out another piece today about the College World Series. There are 15 guys on his top 100 big board in this College World Series. It is an absolutely massive amount of talent, tradition, history, ability that's coming to Omaha for this College World Series. So in this instance, to be the man, you probably got to beat the man, unless somehow LSU gets to the final or Robert shows up, because they're not really the man. Fine team. Not a lot of top 10 picks on Oral Roberts' team. Got one that's a good potential second rounder. So, but this is going to be a loaded bracket for LSU. So the question is, how do you pitch it? And I've seen some people float some different ideas. I've gotten some text messages, and Jay Johnson's got his decision to make, and certainly Tony Vitello's got a decision to make on his end as well. I will tell you kind of how this thing lays out from a scheduling perspective and what that means for LSU and how you got to figure out what you're going to do with Paul Skeens. I'll tell you next.
This is on Palmer. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Join me, Jimmy Ott and Charles Hannegriff, for the Wednesday edition of Live at Lunch. We're live at Roca Pizzeria on Government Street in Mid-City. It's Live at Lunch, Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. from Roca on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Glenn West in 15 minutes. He was out at the box chatting with Jay Johnson, as well as a couple players. So we'll get Glenn's thoughts on what we saw in the Super Regional and what he heard today from some of the Tigers before they hit the road coming up tomorrow. Incidentally, Wes Johnson taking the microphone in Athens as we speak here, and said he's got a bullpen with Paul Skeens on Wednesday at 8 a.m. and they'll leave at 10. So Wes Johnson doing his duty over in Athens right now, being introduced as the next head baseball coach for Georgia. He'll head on back to Baton Rouge. They'll get to work tomorrow, and they will head up to Omaha for as long as they can stay. I wanted to talk about pitching, and not necessarily too much about matchups, although we'll get briefly into that. Just kind of how this thing works, because the College World Series is different now than it was the last time LSU went in 2017. It is far different from when they were going in the 90s. It's a different world up there. They have tightened this thing because it's not spectator friendly. You've got to travel. You're being asked to stay for 2 weeks at times. If you win 2 games, you get like 3 days off at a certain point. Like, all that just was not good for the spectator. It's easier for the teams, especially to navigate pitching, but now it's crammed in there. And LSU does catch an extra day from Stanford and from Tennessee, but there are some teams that catch a day on LSU as well. The 2 brackets start on different days, as you know. Now, I'll get into this as best I can. It's obviously easier if you've got a bracket in front of you, but I'm getting somewhere with Paul Skeens, so just work with me here as we sit through it. Bracket number 1 is going to start on Friday. Oral Roberts will play TCU, and Florida will play Virginia. They're 1 o'clock and 6 o'clock starts. That bracket that starts on Friday does have 1 day of buffer that bracket 2 doesn't have. So bracket 1 will play Friday and Sunday no matter what. And no one in that bracket is going to play on Monday. Even if you've lost a game, you don't play on Monday. So bracket 1 plays off. Okay? So there are 2 built-in off days for bracket 1. Bracket 2 technically has an off day on Friday, but they don't get it on the back end. You understand? So bracket 2 is going to start on Saturday. They will play on Monday, and you might have to play on Tuesday if you lose a game. So it bunches your pitching up. Here's how this works from an LSU perspective. The Tigers play Saturday night against Tennessee. The championship series, if we're talking about winning championships here, starts on Saturday, a week from when LSU plays. The most amount of starts you could get from Paul Skeens is 3, and that's unlikely. I'll walk you through a scenario where he would start 3 games theoretically. He could start on Saturday against LSU and Tennessee. He would need Sunday off, Monday off, Tuesday off, Wednesday off. Technically, on 4 days rest, you could pitch Paul Skeens on Thursday in a game that would try to get you to the championship series. Keep in mind, there is no game on Friday. Friday's an off day. Okay? So he could pitch on Thursday, and the championship series starts on Saturday. If he pitched on Thursday, and he had Friday off, and Saturday off, and Sunday off, on 3 days rest, theoretically, Paul Skeens could give you something in Game 3 of a championship series on Monday. Now, if you hold Paul Skeens and don't pitch him against Tennessee, you're in your head thinking, we want him to face Wake Forest. They're tougher. Ty Floyd beat Tennessee. Dolander might not pitch. We want to use Paul Skeens against the best team in the tournament, Wake Forest. He would then pitch on Monday. If he pitched on Monday, he would need Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday off, and theoretically, he could pitch in the championship series, but not before the championship series in any of the games in the middle of the week that you may need to win to get there. Ideally, if you're LSU, you can go 3-0, win your bracket. You pitch Paul Skeens on Saturday, and he pitches game 1 of the championship series. That's the way this thing works perfectly. But in my opinion, you have to throw Paul Skeens out there to try to one, it gives you the best chance to win the first game. And two, because it maximizes the amount of times you can use him. You may be able to not use him until the championship series, get him on full rest in the championship series. You may be able to bring him back a little bit earlier in a must-win loser's bracket game. And then you may be able to bring him back again in a game 3 of a championship series. But you've got to throw him out there in game 1. I did not fully disagree with Paul Mainieri in 2015 when he sent Jared Poche out against TCU. TCU did not hit left-handers very well that year. And Vanderbilt was coming up next, and they had Walker Buehler and Carson Fulmer, who were first-round picks and Major League Baseball pitchers. Walker Buehler turned into one of the best pitchers in the big leagues. He's dealt with injuries, and Fulmer never quite found it at the Major League level, but he was their best pitcher that year. And you knew that they were going to beat Cal State Fullerton, and you were going to need a dude to go head-to-head with one of the best pitchers in the country. And I did not disagree at all with Paul Mainieri's decision to start Jared Poche. It didn't work. Poche made 2 bad throws to first base. They lost to TCU. You used Lang to beat Fullerton, and then you didn't survive. And so it doesn't always work out. But the way this one shakes out, you got to throw your big guy out there in game 1 against Tennessee. If you were playing some sort of crazy Cinderella like Oral Roberts, I could try to wrap my brain around it, trying to hold your best guy for Wake or Stanford. But that doesn't apply to me. If we find out for whatever reason Jay Johnson's not throwing Paul Skeens, I will disagree with that. But I disagree with it against Tulane, and it worked out. This is not that. I don't subscribe in the regional more often than not with you got to win the first game to get to the second game. No, you're the 1 seed. You're playing the 4 seed. You should be able to win the baseball game. You've played yourself over 56 games into the advantage of playing a much lesser team in the regional opener. You don't need to burn your guy. In Omaha, no. Put the horse out there. Got to have your guy. So for LSU, to spell this out pretty succinctly, LSU needs to go 3-0 to get Paul Skeens a fresh start in the championship series. If they lose and get into the meat of the week in a must-win game, the earliest Paul Skeens would pitch would be on Thursday. And that would be the final game before the championship series, because Friday's an off day. Now, there's always a possibility for rain, and Friday's a built-in off day so that they may be able to use that because of rain. I haven't looked at the forecast. That's the last thing on my mind at this point. But we're not going to allot for rain for the purpose of this discussion on Tuesday of Omaha week. Tennessee has an interesting decision to make because Andrew Lindsey has been their most consistent pitcher down the stretch. Chase Dolander is their most talented pitcher. Andrew Lindsey has been pitching the first game of weekends, whether that's an SEC weekend, the regional, or the super regional. He's pitched the first game of all of them. And Chase Dolander has been pitching the second game every weekend, whether it's an SEC weekend, a regional, or the super regional. Stand to reason, we may see that again. That one gives you a guy that you feel pitched well against LSU back in Baton Rouge, which Lindsey did, has been pitching in openers for you, and it saves your most talented guy potentially for Wake or Stanford, which, you could suggest that LSU's a tougher test, and I would agree with that with Skeens on the mound. But if you're looking at every single piece of this, theoretically, you could feel good about that. When I woke up this morning and saw that Tennessee had won, I thought, we'll see Dolander. The more I think about it, the more it feels like it might be Lindsey. I don't know if Tony Vitello wants to play the cat and mouse games. I don't know if he believes, like Jay Johnson, that 90 minutes before first pitch will tell you. I don't know if on Thursday, which is media day, if they're going to have a press conference and he'll say, yeah, we're going with Lindsey, and then Dolan will pitch game 2. Maybe he does that. I don't know. I haven't followed that closely. But we are going to make every effort to get a couple of Tennessee media members on and kind of see what they think as we move throughout the week. But if you're LSU right now, you catch a 6 o'clock game time on Saturday, and I think you go with your big donkey and you throw him out there and say, hey, come get it, Vols. And that's what I believe will happen. I put this on Twitter, but I'll end this segment with a little bit of a personal story. I don't think I told this on air back last week, but I'm off the hook. I am off the hook. Got my my lovely wife concert tickets for Christmas. She was ecstatic. I did a little theatrical thing with the present. I allowed her to start opening the card that had the tickets in it, and I played the Thomas Rhett and Cole Swindell over the Bluetooth speaker in the house. It was a big hit for Christmas. She loves the tickets. And I knew that they were right around the College World Series, but it was on Friday. And in my brain, which had not switched over to the new College World Series schedule, which is a couple years old, I thought the College World Series started on for Saturday. And I purchased these concert tickets for Friday night and found out in mid-January, before the season even started, oh yeah, College World Series starts on Friday now. I just knew from mid-January through mid-June when we found out. On June the 12th, we found out. So that is 5 full months of sweating over that game time that LSU is playing on Saturday. It was terrible because I don't think I was going to be able to bail on the concert. Got the tickets. They're for her, a gift for her. I'm not going to Omaha. I think I was going to have to go to the concert and just kind of monitor on my phone so as not to entirely destroy the mood of the two of us enjoying a concert. Maybe on the way to get another beer, I can watch extensively. During songs, might have to take some glances. I was not going to be able to sit there and lock in on my cell phone and watch the game from the Cajun Dome. Like, that was not going to be a possibility. And I got off the hook. I don't know whose job it is to set the days and the times of the Super Regional, but thank you for doing that. Thank you for whoever set the times in Omaha. I will now be able to enjoy the concert. I'm disappointed a little bit to miss Virginia and Florida, but I'm going to enjoy the concert. I'm not going to watch that. I'll catch the score when we leave. But I'll be locked in for LSU on Saturday. It was a stressful 5 months. I'm not going to lie to you. It's been in my brain almost every day since that Paul Skeens, one of the best pitchers LSU's ever had, was going to be taking the ball in the opener in Omaha, and I was going to be singing Cole Swindell lyrics in the Cajun Dome. That was a real possibility for 5 months, and we have avoided total disaster, which I'm thankful for. So appreciate all your good thoughts, and we've dodged a bullet there. All right, Glenn West coming up next.
This is on Palmer. Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR. The matchup set will have time, date, and opponent for LSU in the College World Series. We'll start to preview it Tuesday, 3 to 6. Join us, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Glenn West, our guy from Go 24/7, always joins us on Tuesdays at 1:30. Joins us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Now, Glenn, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Hunt. The bags are packed, the flights are booked, the hotel is secured. How about yourself? How are you doing?
I'm quite well. Not as good as you if you're headed up to Omaha real soon. Have you ever been?
I've never been. I'm looking forward to it. I actually, first thing Thursday morning, hoping to get a good viewing of LSU's practice on Thursday and gear up for a weekend and hopefully a little bit longer than that.
It's a great, great trip. It's tough to pack for. One of the leads that I'm most proud of writing was back in 2013 when I covered LSU up there. That team was just a powerhouse, and I packed 2 weeks worth of clothes basically, and they went 0-2. And my lead for my column when I was heading out was that I overpacked. It was a 2-word lead, which is true. I did overpack significantly, but that's what you got to do when you go up there. So yeah, that's awesome. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to you from Omaha next week. Let's go back to the weekend that was. How many hours did you spend at Alex Box Stadium over the weekend?
Oh, I was there probably, I would say, 15. I mean, we had the big 7-hour delay on Saturday. That was not fun. I know me and you chatted in between one of the delays. I can't remember exactly which one, but yeah, I mean, look, it was a long weekend, but I mean, look, if you play out that weekend, you take that result 10 times out of 10, and I'm sure a lot of LSU fans feel the same way. And look, a lot of the folks that stuck around got to see an absolute gem from Paul Skeens in his final outing at Alex Box. So yeah, it was a weird, kind of wonky weekend and how it all played out, but the end result is exactly what I think everybody was hoping for at Baton Rouge.
Well, it was the Beloso homer, maybe Skeens coming off the mound with kind of a curtain call, the Cruz double, just the dog pile and the regional romp. What was the moment that'll stick with you from that weekend?
Yeah, I would say probably the last Cruz single, or I'd say the last Cruz at bat, the RBI double where 2 runs came in. That thing just sounded like it came off a cannon. I mean, that thing was just ripped into left field. I was down on the concourse area with a lot of the other media. I wanted to take in that last 9th inning with the fans instead of up in the press box, and it was an electric moment. I mean, it's kind of encapsulating his career there with that moment and kind of putting the finishing touches on that win in a lot of respects. I thought that was certainly one of the standouts. Absolutely, Cade Beloso's 3-run homer kind of got this thing off to a really good start on Sunday, and yeah, it was a really good, just kind of final weekend in Alex Box. I thought the fan experience was really top notch and very obviously a team very excited now to move on into this College World Series.
How would you describe the state of the bullpen currently?
I think probably you have 3 or 4 arms you feel really good about, and then maybe a whole bunch of others that you just are question marks just because you haven't seen them now in 2 weeks. I think what LSU's been able to do the last couple of weeks in postseason play really whittled down kind of the arms, Riley Cooper, Gavin Guidry, Nate Ackenhausen, Griffin Herring. I think that's kind of the collection of pitchers. Thatcher Hurd, I can't forget Thatcher Hurd, but I think that's kind of the collection of pitchers you're looking at out of the bullpen that they've really responded to in the last couple weeks of postseason play. But after that, I don't know who you're going to be looking at in some of those key spots. I think it's a good thing that you've found a good collection of guys that you can really count on. But I would imagine, at least at some point, if you make it into that, week and a half in Omaha, you're going to have to rely on somebody else that hasn't exactly had a ton of reps out there the last couple of weeks. So that's what I'm going to be most curious about with the bullpen.
It'll be interesting. I think one of the things that fascinates me most, and it's just going to be difficult to predict, is how Jay uses Thatcher Hurd in this College World Series. Certainly you get into the losers bracket and everything's on the table, but do you believe that he's going to be a starter at this point, or do you think that they're just going to have to use him where they think they can win a game?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, I think that you probably go into the weekend thinking that you're going to try to, couple him, whether it's with the Ty Floyd start or with the Paul Skeens start. I would love the idea of getting Thatcher Hurd early in this regional in the College World Series, because you get him an outing early. It allows you to kind of save him and also be kind of available to you later on in the tournament. If you save him down the line and it comes to be a situation where you're playing in a loser's bracket or in a winner's bracket, I think you can survive with some of the other guys. But that is such a huge piece for you in terms of kind of dialing it up and getting a win early in the tournament, getting a couple wins early in the tournament. I would really like to see Thatcher Hurd pitch early, and that's probably out of the bullpen, and then maybe you save him for a spot start later on in the tournament if things break that way.
What about Ty Floyd's start over the weekend? Abbreviated, the line wasn't great.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest underrated thing that has been consistent with Ty Floyd's outings this year is, even if he's not always as sharp as he is on the weekends where he pitches really well, what he does better than I think almost any pitcher on staff is getting himself out of trouble. I think he's really, really good at pitching in really kind of high leverage intensity situations. I mean, you saw it in the first and third innings there on Sunday. Kentucky had 2 runners in scoring position in the first. They had 2 runners in scoring position, or 1 runner in scoring position in the third, but 2 on. And he gets out of both jams without any further damage. And you have the 3 home runs there, but they were only solo home runs. So, that's something that he's kind of been privy to in his career. But the fact that they were solo home runs, I think, was a good thing for LSU. But his competitiveness and his fire on the mound, even when he doesn't have his best stuff, I think is really the thing about him that stands out the most to me.
Chatting with Glenn West, Go 24/7. He'll be up in Omaha covering the Tigers as long as they can make it. Joins us every Tuesday here on the Hunt Palmer Show. Anything that came from post-game press conferences, on-field interviews, anything of interest that you were able to pick up over the last couple of days, whether it was on the field after the game or maybe what y'all just heard?
Absolutely. So I one of the common questions that I had for all the players and even for Coach Johnson after the game on the field was pretty much they feel like they're playing at their peak performance. They feel like they're playing their absolute best at this time of year. And pretty much all of them had the same thing to say, and they said yes. I mean, they feel like they've put together some really good complementary baseball, offense, defense, pitching. Really feels like it hasn't been this in sync in a while, like since the very start of the conference play. And to have that kind of be clicking on all cylinders at this time of year, I think is obviously the optimal situation. I think you can make the argument that pretty much LSU, TCU, and Wake Forest are probably 3 teams that have won all of their games in the postseason, and it's no coincidence why. They're all playing really good complementary baseball. They're all picking one another up out of the bullpen. They're blasting home runs. LSU 6 home runs on that Saturday game. Really feels like LSU's clicking all cylinders right now. And I think a lot of the players and certainly Coach Johnson feel that to be the case heading to Omaha here.
Chatting with Glenn West here on the Hunt Palmer Show. What are your memories of the LSU-Tennessee series and that matchup that we'll see on Saturday night?
Yeah, I remember. I believe LSU did a nice job against Dolander. I believe that it went Skeens versus Dolander, right? So,
it was on Thursday, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe LSU won that game pretty handily. I can't quite remember exactly, but I think that's the matchup that you see again in this first game. I think Tennessee's going to have a lot of reasons to pitch Dolander, and I think LSU's going to have a lot of reasons to pitch Skeens, get you off into that winner's bracket. I think the one common thread here that we've seen kind of in the postseason, whether it's Kentucky or Tulane or Tennessee, LSU's kind of had a favorable matchup in terms of scouting reports and having previous experience against those teams. don't think you can take any of that lightly. I mean, I think that's all good data that you can use for these games. And certainly there's players that are playing well now that maybe weren't playing well in that series earlier this year. But all of it's going to be good data and something that I think LSU can use for this first game.
Word of wisdom here, Glenn, for your first trip up to Omaha. Don't have a couple of beers over at Barrett's and then try to go play volleyball and leave your phone on the table, because Michael Cauble will pick up your phone and put you on Facebook Live playing volleyball after a couple drinks. So that's just, I'm letting you know that happens to some people. I'm not going to let you know who that happened to, but
Okay.
it does happen. And just so be aware, if your phone's available at Barrett's and you go play volleyball, Cauble will take it and he will film you playing volleyball quite poorly after a couple of drinks. So just a word of wisdom.
You know what isn't just good life advice? Just steer clear of Cobble every day. Just steer clear of them.
All right, travel safe up there, Glenn. We'll talk soon.
All right, thanks, Hunt. Appreciate you talking next week.
Glenn West, Go 24/7. We'll be headed up to Omaha to cover the Tigers. It's a fun night. I enjoyed playing volleyball, but I didn't realize that Cauble was videoing me playing volleyball with my own phone. So he's a real jerk. We'll come back and close out hour number 1 next.
This is on Palmer. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
on Wednesday's OTB, the glorious return of flustering as we continue to count you down to Omaha, plus the latest from Saints minicamp and Pelicans trade, maybe? Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
So one thing I'm pretty sure that a lot of you are not monitoring exceptionally closely at this point would be the baseball transfer portal. Clearly at this point, LSU last year was 2 weeks into the offseason, having lost in a regional, and had every opportunity to go immediately and try to address some needs that they had, certainly with pitching, and replace Cade Doty and Jacob Berry, and they obviously did a lot of that. You know, that Tommy White transferred in, you know, that Paul Skeens transferred in, Thatcher Hurd, Christian Little. They got a commitment from Carter Young at Vanderbilt. They got, commitments from the Baylor shortstop, whose name's escaping me at the moment, but LSU was very active early in the offseason, and we're seeing a little bit of that right now. Cam Leiter, who was phenomenal for Central Florida as a freshman pitcher, has committed to Florida State. Ethan Chenault is headed to Florida State as well. Hudson White has transferred to Arkansas, and we don't care who any of these guys are, but these are not insignificant programs making moves. Florida State bottomed out this past year. They hand the keys to the legend's son. It obviously didn't go very well. Now Link Jarrett's job is to rebuild that. They had a terrible year this year in Link Jarrett's first year, but they'll be back. They're Florida State. And Arkansas, we know, is one of the biggest brands in the sport, and they're starting to add some transfers. And I wonder what this means for LSU, because at this point, some of the biggest names in the transfer portal last year were already in. And the feeling from those who cover college baseball on a national level, who certainly know a lot more than I do about players that maybe under the radar schools or guys that are really draftable that are not necessarily in the transfer portal at the level that they were at last year when LSU was just cleaning them up. And Paul Skeens didn't commit to LSU until later in July, and Tommy White was 2 weeks from now. College World Series was over. So it's not as if LSU's like significantly behind the eight ball and all these huge name talents are changing hands. It's just that there are some transfers going on, and LSU is not going to be, hopefully for a week and a half, in a spot to host visitors or make plane trips out to other places like Jay Johnson was doing last year. We've heard Nick Saban complain about this for years. They've just won a national championship. There's confetti still on the field. There's Gatorade still soaked into his clothes. All the guys are wearing, their championship hats, and Saban's sitting at the press conference complaining about how he's behind in recruiting, right? We've heard that story forever, and we know how maniacal Jay Johnson is about roster building and how closely he monitors the transfer portal and recruiting and all that kind of stuff. And as you sit here right now, they're about to head up to Omaha, and I don't know how quickly the transfer portal is going to turn. And I've listened to some folks who cover their baseball programs very closely in the Southeastern Conference, whether it's on podcasts or whatever the case may be, talk about how there were some programs last year that were a little bit behind the eight ball in terms of the transfer portal. This was new. There were bigger names in it than ever. The NIL thing was a real thing, and people were just a little bit flat-footed. And I think Ole Miss was one of them. Ole Miss did not go into the transfer portal and supplement its roster very well. Now, they were in Omaha for 2.5 weeks, and then they had a big parade and all. And this is not something that's been front of mind for Mike Bianco for his 20-plus years in coaching, because you didn't have a transfer portal. Well, now you do. And so this is a spot where there's only 8 teams left, and they may not be able to do quite the work that they were able to do if you weren't in Omaha. Like, I guess Jay can call and say, hey, man, hold on. Don't commit anywhere. You can take your visits or whatever, but promise me before you commit anywhere, you're going to come see me when we get home and we have the trophy. I mean, I'm sure that's the way he'll phrase it. Whether that happens or not, we'll see. But it's a different spot than Jay Johnson and his staff were in last year. And, oh, by the way, he needs a pitching coach. So it's a little bit more difficult to go into the transfer portal and nab a top-flight pitcher, which we think they're going to try to do. when you don't know who's going to be coaching him. Now, Jay may know who the coach is going to be. I don't think that's the case. He may. But there's quite obviously a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes, and it's not just as simple at this point of, hey, head out to practice for an hour, watch a little tape of Chase Dolan and watch a little tape of Andrew Lindsay, look at Maui Ahuna and look at Blake Burke, and then, get on the plane, head up to Omaha and enjoy your time. Like, you've got to be recruiting a pitching coach. You've got to be recruiting the transfer portal. You got to be recruiting your own guys to make sure they don't go in the transfer portal. All the while, you're going to try to prepare yourself to go play in Omaha. It is a different time than it was 4 years ago or 30 years ago. Now, there's probably, I heard Matt say this yesterday, I think if he had the opportunity to go pick any college baseball coach in the country or keep Jay Johnson, he said he would keep Jay. I have absolutely no qualms with that whatsoever. I'm very confident that Jay can handle the situation. I'm just telling you that it's a big situation. Because if you look at the lineup that LSU trotted out there in the Super Regional, not very many of them in the field are going to be back. Now, that doesn't count Jared Jones and Paxton Kling and Brady Neal and Ethan Fry, like a lot of guys who you figure are going to be big-time players for this program that aren't necessarily starting right now. But the transfer portal's swirling, and Florida State's in there, and Arkansas is in there, and Ole Miss is in there, and LSU's going to Omaha. So you got to maybe juggle a couple of things. All right, when we come back after this Sports Center, we're going to chat some LSU football recruiting. One guy in, one guy out. Sharif Ishak at the bottom of hour number 2. Stick with us on a Tuesday.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. Not clear right now what's going on with Stephon Diggs and the Bills. Coach Sean McDermott today said their number one receiver was not at the team's mandatory minicamp. He called the absence very concerning. The Bills did confirm Diggs was at their facility yesterday and this morning and then left before today's practice. Panthers won't be announcing whether injured star Matthew Tkachuk will play in a must-win Game 5 Stanley Cup final until puck drop tonight against Vegas. The Rangers hired Peter Laviolette as their new coach. He gets a 3-year deal. The Heat, coming off disappointment in the NBA Finals, facing some big questions this NBA offseason, including what assets it'd be willing to put in a trade to acquire another star to pair with Jimmy Butler. ESPN NBA insider Brian Windhorst.
They obviously have a need at the offensive end of the court, and they're in position to make a deal. They have Tyler Hero coming on to his big new contract. He is a player who has some value in the league. Duncan Robinson totally rebuilt his value throughout this great postseason run. And they have the 18th pick in this draft.
Our Brian Windhorst on Get Up.
Do you own or rent your home? Sure you do. Fortunately, Geico makes it easy to bundle your home and car insurance. It's a good thing, too, because having a home is hard work. Go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. Geico.com. Easy.
Now, Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Holding down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2 on this Tuesday, Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN. Of course, coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city. If you're looking for something to do tonight, I got you covered. Pluckers Sports Trivia. Every single Tuesday, we're at the Nicholson location. 8:30 is when we start up. Get you out of there by 10 o'clock. Always a good time. Grab a team. Come on out to Pluckers. Got delicious cold draft beer, awesome chicken wings, and you can win gift cards to Pluckers, which is great. Always a lot of fun. Come out to Pluckers, Nicholson location, 8:30 tonight for Sports Trivia. Speaking of great news, LSU picked up some great news over the last 24 hours. Joel Rogers decided he was going to stay home and commit to LSU. Rogers is a 4-star safety from West Feliciana up there in St. Francisville. If you look at On3 industry ranking, they've got him as the 8th-ranked player in the state. On3 ranks Joel Rogers as the number 4 player in the state of Louisiana. Rogers is big, physical, 6 feet tall, 190 pounds or so, profiles as a safety at the next level. And this is just another piece of good news regarding the state of Louisiana for LSU. And we know that last year in the state wasn't awesome to LSU, and we've gone through the reasons why that was for a lot. I mean, they weren't going to get Arch Manning. Arch Manning was not going to go to LSU. And then you start to look down the list, and Eli Holstein was probably not going to come to LSU. He transferred high schools because of Walker Howard. I don't think he was going to go jump right behind him at that point. Now, of course, Walker's no longer here, but Holstein ends up at Alabama. Tackett Curtis was pretty clear he was headed elsewhere well before Brian Kelly got the job, and he took his talents out west to Southern Cal. Jaden Ausberry, there was nothing you were going to do to get him to go to LSU. He grew up at LSU. His dad played at LSU. His dad works for LSU. He went to high school at LSU. There was nothing he could learn, no recruiting pitch you could give Jaden Ausberry that was going to get him to LSU. So you look up, and yeah, you wish you would have gotten Jordan Matthews, who went to Tennessee. And yes, you wish you would have gotten Derek Williams, who went to Texas. And there were a couple of misses there in the top 10, but for the majority of that list, you didn't really have a chance in year one. But we know that Brian Kelly has put a massive amount of emphasis on the state of Louisiana, as anyone would do when they take the job at LSU. Obviously. You were certainly within your right to feel like Brian Kelly may have been an outsider coming in here to try to recruit the state. But as I've heard Charles Handegriff say and Matt Moscona say many, many times, Dale Brown wasn't from here. Nick Saban wasn't from here. Skip Bertman wasn't from here. Get the picture? if you know what you're doing, you know what you're doing. And Brian Kelly has made it abundantly clear wherever he's been that he knows what he's doing. So they put a ton of emphasis on the in-state class in this class of 2024. And they've got a commitment from Trey'Dez Green, who's a top 5 player in the state, the tight end from East Feliciana. They've got commitment from Deshaun McBride, big safety from Denham Springs. Got a commitment from Juwan Johnson from Lafayette Christian, who committed to Colorado and then went up there for the spring game and came back and said, I don't think so. I'll stick around. And he's a cornerback prospect, maybe a nickelback prospect at LSU. Got commitment from Kalaj Cobbins, linebacker from Destrehan, Ahmad Bro. These are all top 10 players in the state that they've gotten in the boat, and Joel Rogers was the latest to make that pledge. This is a guy that the staff is really, really high on. They prioritized a bunch, and you look at the safety room at LSU, and it's kind of been in flux for the last couple of years because of the transfer portal and guys coming in and heading out. This year, it looks like Greg Brooks is a fifth year, will play some safety and some nickel. Andre Sam is a senior that they added in that may play some safety and some nickel. You certainly expect a ton from Major Burns. I think that Sage Ryan is going to give you something, safety, nickel. There are some moving pieces there. Kylan Jackson was really the biggest fish in the safety class in last year's class, 6'3", almost 200 pounds from Zachary. He's going to be probably a star at LSU, I would think. Ryan Yates is big and physical from Denton, Texas. And that's a guy that you bring at the safety spot. But you got to continue to add to it. You can't just be plucking guys from the transfer portal and ask them to be your guys. You got to start and build some young depth. So when you consider adding Joel Rogers in the class right behind Yates and Jackson, that's a really nice start there as safety with some younger players as opposed to just like the secondary has been functioning for 2 years on transfer portal guys that are going to come in, play a year or two, and leave. You really like to bring in some high school kids, and when you've got them in the state, you got to make it happen. So they did with Joel Rogers over the weekend. He was thinking about visiting TCU, considering going on a visit to Alabama, and the staff stopped him right in his tracks and said, hey, man, how about staying home? And he decided that was what he was going to do. So at this point, according to On3, LSU has commitments from inside the top 10 in Louisiana: Trey'Dez Green, Joel Rogers, Deshaun McBride, Juwan Johnson, Kalaj Cobbins, and Ahmad Bro. That is 6 of the top 10. When you look at the rest of the guys in this class, Dominic McKinley is first and foremost at the top of this list. He is a 4-star by On3. He's a 5-star by some other services. He's a 6'5", 280-pound defensive lineman from over at Acadiana. That's a guy you really, really need to get in this class. And the prediction machine over there at On3 suggests that there's an 83% chance he would come here. A&M is listed elsewhere. Wardell Back, awesome corner from John Ehret from Marrero. He's a 4-star, second-ranked player in the class. LSU needs to try to lock him up. Those are the top 2 guys according to On3's consensus in the state of Louisiana. You've got work to do with those guys. Tylen Singleton from Manny up in North Louisiana, 6'2", 200-pound linebacker. He's a guy that most consider a heavy LSU lean. He is the 6th-ranked player in the state. And the other one that LSU doesn't have in the boat is Kobe Young from Holy Cross. He's a wide receiver, 6 feet tall, 170 pounds, and the thought is that he is considered an LSU lean. All these guys I'm mentioning are considered LSU leans, and as I talk to Shea Dixon, and as I talk to Billy Embody and some of the guys over there that cover recruiting day-to-day and are certainly deep into the weeds here, there's a significant amount of confidence that LSU is going to get the top 10 players in the state this year. And that is just massive because that sets a tone moving forward. Every single recruiting case is different, and I very rarely react viscerally to individual recruiting battles because there's only so much you can do. If the sense is that there's just gross negligence by the coaching staff and you're not paying attention or not spending time with a guy or having a guy on visits who's not getting – like, that can't happen. But every once in a while, a 4-star kid or, heaven forbid, a 5-star kid from South Louisiana gets eyes elsewhere. And you can bring them on official visits and you can go on your in-home visits and you can offer them the scholarship and show them all the bells and whistles and give them the pitch about staying home, and it just doesn't work and the other team gets them. And if that happens once, I'm just not going to react that viscerally. If it happens 4 times a year inside the state, well, we'll have a different discussion. But I think setting the tone that staying home in Louisiana for a class is important and having those guys come in and be a part of your program for a year and then host those recruits who come in and continue that message is a big deal in Louisiana. I have had my eyes opened over the last few years in the transfer portal to guys transferring back home from out of state that were Louisiana high school players that went somewhere else and have transferred back to LSU that can absolutely play, and I had never heard of them in high school. There are so many good players in this state. It is amazing. I never heard of Jarek Bernard Converse before he committed back to LSU. Never heard of him. I can't tell you I knew a whole lot about Mekhi Garner over at ULL. Not that he left the state at ULL, but I never heard of him. Went to ULL. He could play in the SEC. And that list keeps growing. I didn't know who Greg Brooks and Joe Fouché were. They played against LSU for 3 years. They can play. And I'm not suggesting that any of these guys are superstars or first-team All-Americans, and you got to have those if you're LSU because you're trying to win, at the elite level. But there are a lot of guys in this state that can play, and keeping as many of them home as you can works for me. And Shay's talked about this a lot, especially on the 1-3 message board, but he's done it on my show as well, saying, look, like you recruit some of these guys and they get away, but you got to maintain that relationship because they may go to TCU or they may go to Georgia Tech or they may go to Louisiana Lafayette. And then 2 years later, they've grown into something you thought they might be, and they'd like to come on back. And you take them with open arms because that helps. But the staff is doing such a good job in the state of Louisiana right now. There is a chance they could run the table in the state this year. And it's not one of those 2011, the FAM years with Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham and Freak Johnson, Lale Collins and Jeremy Hill and Kenny Hilliard and all those guys. And it's not quite what it was. I think that was the 2015 class that had Malachi Dupree and Leonard Fournette, and in that class with Trey Quinn. It was just a loaded class of guys. Brandon Harris was in that class, Darrell Williams. It was a loaded class. This may not be quite to that level, but again, the depth in the state continue to just build up that roster. And we know that Brian Kelly inherited that roster that had 40-something people on it. They're knocking on the door of 85 now and continuing to do so with some big help from inside the state of Louisiana. So a really nice get from LSU with Joel Rodgers, top 5 player in the class, according to On3. West Feliciana safety is headed to Baton Rouge for his college football. Very, very good sign. It's still camp season, still commitment season, still recruiting season, and they're working hard over at On3. So if you're looking for your recruiting coverage, highly recommend the Bengal Tiger over there. Shay Dixon, Billy Embody, and Matthew Bruni do an awesome job of covering you front to back on recruiting. All right, we still got Sharif Ishak coming up here in 15 minutes. Stay with us on the Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
LWCC is Louisiana Loyal, elevating and celebrating champions of Louisiana like Corey Barr. Corey's the owner and founder of Parish Restaurant, Standard Coffee, and Heritage Catering, all in Fun Row, Louisiana. That's where he was born and raised. He's a culinary and economic leader in Louisiana, and he's deeply invested in the conservation methods for sustainable foods and mentoring the next generation of restaurateurs right here in the state of Louisiana. Corey's done a lot of awesome things. He's finalist for the Food Network Star. He beat Bobby Flay. Food and Wine named him People's Best New Chef. He's done a lot of things on a nationwide level, but he always comes back home to Louisiana and wants what's best for his home state, and that's why Corey Barr is a champion of Louisiana. If you know of a champion of Louisiana like Corey, we want to tell their story. Go to lwcc.com/champions and nominate a champion of Louisiana so that we can tell their story. Corey Barr is June's champion of Louisiana. LWCC is Louisiana Loyal.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated.
Join me, Jimmy Ott and Charles Hannegriff, for the Wednesday edition of Live at Lunch. We're live at Roca Pizzeria on Government Street in Mid-City. It's Live at Lunch, Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. from Roca on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Pretty good basketball game last night. I was watching more college baseball, but I was flipping over to the basketball and certainly watched the last 5 minutes, just locked in there. It was a pretty good game. The scoring wasn't great, and the Heat kind of ran out of gas. They just couldn't score. They tried to insert Tyler Hero in last night and try to maybe hit some shots here and there, but they just didn't have enough offensive firepower. Excuse me. Yikes. Cough button came in handy there. But if you go in on the road in an elimination game and score 89 points, you're just not going to win. And they didn't. They put a heck of a run together. You beat the Bucks and the Celtics on that side and get to this point. You've accomplished something, but you didn't quite get to the finish line. And the Nuggets were the best team the whole year, and they had the best player. Jokic didn't win the MVP this year. He'd won the previous two, but he's the best player. He's the most impactful player out there. There's an element of control that he's got over the game while he's on the floor that I don't see very much in the league. And the numbers he put up running through this thing, with first player ever with 500 points and 250 rebounds and 150 assists in a postseason, is amazing. The first player in the history of the league to lead the playoffs in points, rebounds, and assists. That's amazing. And I read some interesting stories about him, when the dust had settled and people were pinning some things about this Nuggets team. For instance, he was drinking 3 liters of Coke a day before he kind of got serious with the Nuggets. 3 liters of Coca-Cola a day for the big guy. Kind of got his diet in check and got him moving forward early in his NBA career, and he's now morphed into something you could not have imagined when you took him 41 overall, second round of the draft. Everybody knows he got drafted during a commercial, but this is one of those all-time draft picks that's, I think, very possibly, if not likely, going to net Denver multiple championships. They had never won one before, and they got it done last night. I think I've said this many times, and I'll continue to say it. I don't know how passionate the Denver Nugget fan base is in January. Maybe it's awesome, maybe it's not. I can tell you right now, I'm not tuning into Nuggets Kings in January. That's just not going to happen in my house. But it's cool when a fan base gets to win it for the first time, when they see something they've never seen before. And I know they've had it with the Broncos. The Rockies haven't gotten there, but to get it on the basketball side for the first time is very, very cool for them. I think from as far as on the court goes, the one basketball takeaway that I have from the game is it drives me insane when teams are down 3 with 25 seconds to go in a game and feel like they've got to hoist up a 3. And the Nuggets were up 3 with 17 seconds to go, and Butler throws up a contested fadeaway 3. That, to me, didn't feel like playoff Jimmy making a play. It didn't feel like a guy with the game in his hands it felt like a guy who gave up. And that's hyperbolic in a sense, but what is that shot? You've put your entire series in the hands of a 14% shot. I mean, what is Jimmy Butler from 3 falling away contested? Not good. That ball, I mean, Jeff Van Gundy almost came unglued when he said, you got to drive the ball to the basket. And I just hated that shot so much. and it was the final nail in the coffin to the Heat. And I still don't think that Eric Spoelstra's legacy is hurt by this at all. I think it's, in fact, enhanced. And I feel kind of like that about Jimmy Butler, that it's kind of enhanced because he was kind of the face of this team that sprung 2 pretty sizable upsets and got to the finals once again. The bubble thing, it is what it is, but this was legit. But he could have done himself a lot to win a championship. Like, that would have been a big deal for his legacy moving forward. Jokic, I think, is building toward, all-time status. It's not assured, but it's very possible. Jimmy's not getting to all-time status. But you can join some of those guys that got their championship if he would have gotten there. And this one, he comes up a little bit short. They were the lesser team. Everybody knows that. Nobody's suggesting this was any sort of choke or that they didn't show up. They just weren't as good. And you thought maybe when they stole game 2, they really are game. And then Denver just put it on them. They're just better. But Jimmy, I think, to get his one would have been a big deal. I don't know that you would have put him in Dirk's class, but getting that one would have been a big deal. And he wasn't quite able to get over the hump. And now Jokic kind of looks forward at a trajectory that could be all time. The celebration and reactions to this entire thing have been discussed a lot. It is bizarre to me. He's so uncomfortable celebrating a championship. He wants to go home and look at his horses and not go on the parade on Thursday. He's like the half-ass champagne thing he did where he's trying to spray it and doesn't really spray it, so he just quits. It was I don't know if he's just out of gas or if he's genuinely unhappy and wants to go back and have an off season. I don't know, but it was bizarre to watch him fake celebrate and kind of not celebrate winning the NBA title because he just wants to go home. He said it in the post game. Want to go home. Crazy. But look, pretty good basketball postseason. I think the Heat were a really interesting storyline, and I think Jokic's pursuit of getting one was interesting. I know there are a lot of people that are sick of LeBron, sick of Steph, and don't want to deal with those storylines anymore. And if that's the case, here you go. You got something fresh, and now we'll see what Denver can do on top of it. He and Murray are one heck of a team. Jamal Murray is probably even better than I thought he was going to be when he was lighting it up for Cal at Kentucky. I thought he was a nice piece and maybe a good shooter, but I just didn't know that he'd be an all-star type player and a guy who could very much play Robin in a championship run, and he certainly did. Through this entire run, through the playoffs, and the Nuggets are the champions. So the celebration will be Thursday. I don't know how excited Jokic is about it. Doesn't sound like very excited at all. But they win it. We'll have a celebration on Thursday. I want to remind you about our Rad Dad contest coming up with Father's Day this weekend. 104.5 ESPN and Acura Baton Rouge want to know, how rad is your dad? You can upload a picture of your dad doing dad things to 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge now through June 15th. So you got 2 more days to submit that Rad Dad photo, and you get a chance to win a charter fishing trip for 4, courtesy of LouisianaCharterFishing.com. We'll choose a winner at random on June the 16th, so happy Father's Day from Acura of Baton Rouge, LouisianaCharterFishing.com, and 104.5 ESPN. A reminder, I told you at the top of the hour, we will have sports trivia coming up tonight at Pluckers, 8:30 Nicholson location. Come on out and play some sports trivia. We'll be watching sports on TV. Sadly, probably watching the Cubs, who are not very good. But I'll be watching. You can put a team together. You can play sports trivia. You can win gift cards over there at Pluckers, Nicholson location, coming up at 8:30 this evening. Sharif Ishak with WDSU was down on the field at the box as the Super Regional came to a close. We'll get some thoughts on what I thought was a great interview with Tommy White coming up, as well as some Saints minicamp thoughts. Sharif Ishak next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
This is Hunt Palmer. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
is the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all of that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR. The matchup set will have time, date, and opponent for LSU in the College World Series. We'll start to preview it Tuesday, 3 to 6. Join us, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Usually when we're looking for some info on New Orleans, whether it be the Pels or the Saints, we head on down there and chat with our guy Sharif from WDSU. However, this past weekend, he was up in Baton Rouge. He's down on the field after the Super, so he joins us now. Sharif, how are you, sir?
Hey, thanks.
That was incredible content. For those who don't know what we're talking about, which is probably most of you, Sharif was rolling on the field with rolling the video camera, not actually rolling on the ground, rolling the video camera on the field, and he had Skip, and Skip was walking over to Tommy White, and you see Skip walking over, and he goes, "Hey, Tanks!" And I watched it 30 times. I thought it was just hilarious. Was that just a deal where you were just seeing what Skip was doing?
Actually, my photographer Hudson Miller, he was running around. I didn't notice it until I made a long reel of the celebration and victory laps. I was like, this is great. I didn't even notice it until the next day, honestly, because I was just laying the video over the sound bites and the packages, and I was like, this is awesome. I had no clue until I posted it, honestly.
It was good stuff. What was it like down there on the field? I know you've been down there before. I've been down there with you before, and there weren't quite the fireworks that we saw back in 2013. But what was it like?
I think you could see a little bit of excitement and joy. I mean, it wasn't as crazy as as past years. It felt like it was it's business as usual, and let's do this with a little bit more excitement if we can win the whole thing in Omaha. But it was fun though. It was good to see everyone who's been working so hard these last 3 years. It's been 6 years since they've gotten to Omaha. It feels like a lifetime. 6 years. It's usually we used to seeing them go every year or every other year, but man, it was just business as usual. But you could see the joy in a lot of those guys' faces, especially Gavin Dugas and Kate Beloso, and his journey on and off the field has been a long one and a tough one, and to see guys like that get a chance to finish their careers in Omaha, it was just fun to see after the game.
It sounds conceited, and it may even sound like taking things for granted, but I've written this and I've actually said it. People that make a huge impact on the program at LSU deserve to play in Omaha. That just feels like something that happens. It still grinds my gears a little bit that Kevin Gosman never got the chance, but just about everybody else has gotten their chance to go up there and play, and these guys had not. Only Riley Cooper and Bryce Collins, I believe, have even been. So it's a great opportunity for all these guys. Sharif, one of the sound bites that I saw from you that I particularly enjoyed was your chat with Tommy White and his talking about LSU, because I don't know that I've seen a lot of Tommy White interviews over the last 5 months, and you were able to chat with him. What did you take away from your conversation with Tommy White on the field?
Oh man, this dude was so pumped up, man. Adrenaline was still rolling after the game, and he truly does live and die LSU. I mean, just listening to that conversation over and over again. I watched it a few times, and his excitement to be in that LSU uniform is off the scale. And you could just hear him at the end, because when I asked him about the Jay Johnson thing, because the day before in Game 1, Jay did that interview. He's like, "Hey, if you're in transfer portal, this is why you want to come to LSU, because of the atmosphere." And it almost felt like Tommy White was also recruiting people who are in a transfer portal in high school. Hey, this is where you want to be if you want to play in a great atmosphere, want to win championships, you come to LSU. And it was almost like, hey, he wants better players to come and join the program, just like he did from NC State. But man, he loves LSU, and that's exactly the type of players you want in your team. Guys who are passionate and very good.
That's the story to tell. You've now had the National Freshman of the Year come to LSU twice. Jacob Berry did and became a top 5 pick, and then Tommy White did, and he picked up right where he left off at NC State. He set the National Freshman home run record last year, and he's had a monster this year, and he might lead the country in RBIs when it's all said and done. And that's the story that Jay Johnson's going to be able to tell every single year as the transfer portal kind of opens up. What do you make of this team's chances when they get to Omaha?
I do like the way they're playing right now. I mean, a few weeks ago, 5-6 weeks ago, we're asking ourselves, man, what's going on with the bullpen? Can they find somebody behind Paul Skeens? And if Skeens comes out, are you going to be holding your breath a lot? And it seems like now they're trending in the right direction where everything is working at the right time. I like the fact that, he can rely on Riley Cooper like he did when he was in Arizona. I heard it after regional, that soundbite. Hey, we were down in a super regional whenever I was at Arizona. We were down 4-0. I put him in. He settled us down, and we won the game. Those are the type of guys that you want out there out of the bullpen and pitching for you, guys with experience and have been there in Omaha. And he's really showed out in the last couple weeks for this bullpen. And Paul Skeens is Paul Skeens. If he gives you 8 innings, I mean, you're going to win Game 1. It doesn't matter if Chase Dolander is pitching against you Saturday. LSU's going to win that game if he gives you 8 solid innings. So the way they're hitting, the way they're executing, the way they're playing defense, huh? How about that game against Kentucky? All the plays were being made in the infield. And Trey Morgan at first base continues to do Trey Morgan things and saves base hits and errors. And look, man, I always said the team was playing the best ball at the right time. usually has a chance to win it all, and you don't need to give LSU any more ammo or any motivation to win a national championship. They were already, preseason picked to win it all, and you're starting to see why at the right time.
Does this feel like the beginning of a pretty special run here for Jay Johnson in Baton Rouge?
Yes, for so many reasons, transfer portal, recruiting high school kids, and you get a chance to see what the guys like Tommy and Dylan and Paul are doing, and Trey, everybody else contributed in a massive way. When people see that, people say, hey, I want to be a part of that atmosphere. I want to be a part of that program. It looks fun. I want to win and be in a position to win year in and year out. And as you know, Hunt, it's there every year. And I think that, this trip to Omaha is going to benefit them for the next 3 to 5 years.
Program was definitely on display over the weekend, and has been they've been pretty high profile all season long. So that's all signs pointing in the right direction, I would imagine. Let's shift gears here, Sharif, to the Saints mini camp. Saw Taysom Hill out there throwing passes, running routes. What are they accomplishing at this point in mini camp?
I think you're probably getting some small installations of both sides of the ball, honestly. And the Taysom Hill thing is, he's always done that. Yeah. And, Dennis is going to say the same answer. Hey, we're going to play him in every position, work him at every position. But, it is just integrating the game plan in a very minor and basic way, but also getting a chance for, we continue to say, Derek Carr to work with Alvin Kamara. Since he wasn't at OTAs, he was finally, a present for mini camp. And, those two have to get on the same page now. And just getting some of the other, the offensive line, who all of them were there finally for the first time. Trevor Penning still not 100% yet working off on the side, but it's just continue to build the chemistry and get the game plan into motion and installing things. And we're going to see that in these 3 days of minicamp practice, and then boom, a break, and then we're back to training camp.
It's right around the corner. I appreciate this LSU baseball team for extending throughout June, or we're only going to have a couple of weeks of the slowest time of the year. It's not to suggest there's nothing to talk about, but it is slower than most, and they're gonna get us into a big piece of that down here in South Louisiana. Last thing here, Sharif, and this is kind of an open-ended question, but as far as some guys that are still free agents, there are still some guys out there that have not signed anywhere. Is there a position that you think the Saints are going to move on? Is there a position, do you think, a player that you have in mind the Saints may be interested in, or is they're kind of looking like they're going to address some of that as we get towards training camp?
Look, I wouldn't be surprised. I want to see what the Raiders do with Hunter Renfrow. It feels like they're taking anyone away from the Raiders that either wants to be traded or they're going to eventually cut. He has a good chemistry, and he would be a good slot receiver to throw in there for Derek Carr, knowing those two guys' connection and being on the same team. I'd look at, if he does get cut by the Raiders, it wouldn't shock me at all if the Saints bring him in. They have the money, they have the salary cap to bring him in and keep him on the team for a few years. I mean, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to have an extra weapon on an offense. If it stays healthy, it would be really good. But I think I'd like to see them add a linebacker. That's a position I think, hey, man, somebody gets hurt, or, man, I just don't know. I mean, who's going to come in? I mean, a lot of guys, very inexperienced guys out there right now. I mean, you just have Pete and you have DeMario. I know they like to run with just two linebackers, but one of those guys goes down. It's very, very thin there when it comes to experience. So I would say those two positions. I mean, I don't know guys who are going to be available before camp or during camp. Somebody gets cut loose. But, yeah, I would say Hunter Renfrow and get you a little, depth at linebacker. And I'm fine with the defensive line. I mean, secondary is pretty deep to me. So I think I would look at those two positions. Maybe an offensive line. Too.
Anybody headed to Omaha for y'all?
I've been 5 times, and I love the trip. Love it more than anyone in the world. But I think Kendall Duncan's going to take it this time. So I need a little bit of a break from that 2-week call if it lasts that long. I was there for the Florida.
Oh yeah, that was a long one. Man. I was not up there for that one. I have not been since 2013. Yeah, 2009, 2013 are the 2 years that I went. So it's been a minute for me.
Yeah, I've been there for the winning of the 2009 and losing of 17, and just, man, it's a tough grind. I love it. It's my favorite trip to cover. But, man, now you got a year and a half plus year old.
I got you covered there.
Yeah, you can't go away for 10 to 14 days as much as I could in the past. But I love that trip, man. It's my favorite trip of anything to cover when it comes to sports. But it's Kendall. She's gonna go cover for WDSU. She's gonna like it, and she's gonna realize it's probably one of the best trips to ever go on in terms of covering sports.
We'll talk next week. Thanks, Sharif.
All right, see you on.
Sharif Ishak, WDSU, not going to Omaha, but Glenn West, our first guest, certainly is. All right, we'll take one more time out. Come back, close it out. Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
One Bath and Closets, onebathandclosets.com. What would the bathroom of your dreams look like? Maybe you don't even know. You just know that the one you got right now is just not up to snuff. Doesn't perform the way that you want it to. It doesn't look the way you want it to. David Duvall and his team can do it. I was chatting with David a couple of weeks ago, and the term he uses, we do everything soup to nuts, meaning they handle everything in your bathroom renovation remodel. You don't have to call 4 different contractors to get it done. You got a plumber, and you got a floor guy, and somebody to deal with the shower and the tiles, light, electrician. No, David Duvall and his team do every single thing. So you don't have to call 4 people. You call 1. You call David Duvall and his crew at One Bath and Closets. They get it done. Whether it's a full-scale renovation like I'm talking about, or it's just a tub-to-shower conversion that totally changes the functionality and the look of your bathroom, modernizes it, and allows you to have it function the way that you want it to. David Duvall and his team specialize in just that. Can also help you with your closet, whether it's using your existing closet and just optimizing the space, or building you a brand new closet. They can do that as well. Check out the website, onebathandclosets.com. It's got the testimonials there. It's got some pictures of some of the great work that they've done. They can make the bathroom of your dreams happen at One Bath and Closets. Go to the website, onebathandclosets.com, onebathandclosets.com.
Our listeners fire up their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust Poll of the Day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, live at lunch, Hunt Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the Poll of the Day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Oh, hey, what's up? It's Big V and Bubba, 100.7 The Tiger Morning Show. We'd love for you to join us every weekday, 4 a.m. till 9 a.m.
Yeah, everything you want in a show. Country music. We got laughs. We got celebrity in-studio guests. We just need you.
Join us every weekday morning, 4 a.m. to 9 a.m., right where it all started.
That's right. Louisiana's country station, 100.7 The Tiger.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated.
On Wednesday's OTB, the glorious return of flustering as we continue to count you down to Omaha, plus the ladies from Saints minicamp and Pelicans trade, maybe? Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
I've got my preliminary feelers out for guests for the other teams in LSU's bracket for the College World Series. We will certainly chat with Les Johns, who covers Wake Forest for 24/7. Tomorrow, we actually had Les on back in December when LSU played Wake Forest in Atlanta in basketball and had that crazy comeback in the second half. So Les was good enough. He's going to join us tomorrow to kind of talk about the Deeks run through this season, which has been really, really impressive. I've got a couple contacts up in Knoxville to get to for the Vols. Stanford, going to be a little trickier. They're not quite as hands-on out west and covering their college sports teams as we are down here in the southeast. So that should come as no surprise, but it is what it is. I'm going to see what I can do and try to get Stanford, and may get Nick Delatorre to come on here over the next couple of days as well to talk about the Florida Gators. I really think they've got a great chance to come out of the other side. Here's the deal. This bracket is loaded. Oral Roberts, I don't think is a great team. I think they're playing really good right now. I think they've won a lot of games. I don't think they're a great team. They've got a really good closer and a really good three-hole hitter. But that would be a nice draw for someone to get. Tennessee's not. Wake's not. Stanford's not. And LSU is not. So this is going to be a meat grinder of a bracket for all four of the teams on LSU's side. That's just the way it's going to go. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a lot of fun. And those who don't have any dog in the hunt should really enjoy the College World Series. It's going to be a lot for us watching it, though. So we'll continue to try to get some folks in. And certainly as Jimmy and Charlie go up there on Wednesday, or on Thursday, they're going to do their show Thursday night for those of you that missed it. So they're going to go into Jimmy's time slot on Thursday from 6 to 8. They'll be back 11 to 1 on Friday as College World Series gets underway on Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock. And so we'll be checking in with them periodically as LSU continues to move through this thing, and hopefully they're there all week long. We got one more thing to do here on this Tuesday. Let's play some Take It or Leave It.
All right, first one here. Oklahoma softball ace Jordy Ball is transferring to Nebraska. Take it or leave it.
So I saw this, and we don't do a lot of softball in here, specifically not Oklahoma softball. However, y'all realize they've won 3 national championships in a row. They were like 58-1 this year, and their ace is transferring from Oklahoma to Nebraska. This is like Georgia's best edge rusher transferring to Kentucky. Like Georgia's quarterback transferring to South Carolina. Like this is, I don't get it. And then I read the story. She's from the Omaha area, and she just wants to go back home, and she thinks if she shows up at Nebraska to play for a year and brings her, I think she's 44-2 over the last 2 years, brings that kind of recognition and name brand awareness to Nebraska, that will be good for her home state and for softball as a whole. I think it's a really ambitious thing and not something I would expect to see, but this is Oklahoma's best player from the 3-time national defending champions. She's been on 2 of them, leaving to go to a very much lesser program. This is, I thought, an interesting story, so I guess she'll take it.
LSU will win Rocco's Jello Shot Challenge, and Oral Roberts will finish last. Take it or leave it.
I do like Oral Roberts to finish last because I think they will be there very short, and I don't know that they're known for their binge drinking, which I would guess Jello Shots would kind of, especially if you're going to have 8,000 of them like Ole Miss, I think that would qualify as binge drinking. The only reason LSU would win is if they're there the longest. That's the thing. Like, if you go 1-2 and you're out of there on Tuesday and somebody else stays through next Monday, they're going to beat you in the Jello Shot Challenge. Rocco's is right around the corner from the stadium, and so it really is just a measure of who sticks around the longest. So I love LSU's baseball team. I hope they're there all the way through, so I will take this and say they'll win the Rocco. I can promise you, no matter who comes out of the other side, whether it's Florida, TCU, whoever comes out of the other side, it doesn't matter. If LSU is there until next Sunday or Monday, they will win the Rocco's Jello Shot going away. It'll be a landslide victory for the Tigers, but it just depends on how long you're there. I promise you, LSU ain't winning if everybody packs up and heads on home on Tuesday.
All right, last one here. Dalvin Cook says he wants more than $10 million per year. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it probably. It's not like he's declining. He's run for 1,000 yards the last 4 years, ran for 1,173 yards last year, played all 17 games. He's 27 years old, which is no spring chicken for a running back. But I'm just not in the mode of paying running backs $10 million very often. Just think there are better ways to allocate your funds. Now, the more I talk about this and the more I cover the NFL from a salary cap perspective, and I certainly would not proclaim to understand it perfectly, but the Saints are pretty much proof that you can tap dance around just about anything from a salary cap perspective. So if somebody's in the need for a running back and you pay him $10 million next year, he's probably going to run for 1,200 yards, and he's probably going to run for 8, 9, 10, 12 touchdowns, and he's probably going to be a really good player for you. Just a matter if you could have used those $12 million elsewhere, grab somebody on the interior offensive line, a couple players. I don't know. It's just running back's just not where I'm allocating a ton of funds, even though he's a really, really good one. He was 22 like he was as a rookie. Okay, he's 27 right now, which, by the way, is the same age as Ezekiel Elliott. Just doesn't seem like the greatest idea to dump a bunch of money there. So Dalvin can want it all he wants. It's just a matter of whether or not somebody's willing to give it to him. So that becomes the question, I suppose. All right, that'll do it for Take It or Leave It. We'll be at Pluckers tonight, 8:30, Nicholson location. Looking forward to it. Grab a team. Come on out. We always have a lot of fun. And you can win gift cards, delicious draft beers, great wings and food over there at Pluckers. Lots and lots of fun. 8:30, Nicholson location. Pluckers Sports Trivia. We do it every single Tuesday. I think Drew Moscona is about to turn 9, which means I've been doing Pluckers Trivia for 9 years. That's hard to believe, but I still very much enjoy my Tuesdays going up there, so I'll be there again tonight. Looking forward to that very, very much. We opened the show today talking about last night's action with Tennessee winning and Stanford winning and moving on to the College World Series and kind of what both of those mean and my takeaways from those two games. And then at 1:15, I dove into how LSU should pitch this thing. It's basically, what can you get out of Paul Skeens in the College World Series with this new schedule? Remember, this is not the same schedule that LSU has played over the years in Omaha. They have tightened this thing up, and there are less off days. So I gave my thoughts on the way that Jay should pitch it, and I think that's exactly how he will pitch it, because the second option is just not all that realistic. Glenn West, who's headed up to Omaha coming up in a couple of days, joined us at 1:30. Talked a little bit more about LSU baseball at 1:45. So your first hour, locked and loaded LSU baseball, start to finish. In hour number 2, we open with LSU recruiting. Joel Rogers commits. What does that mean for this class, and what is happening in this state in the top 10? That was kind of where I went with that segment, and it's encouraging for LSU football fans. 2:15, we talked a little NBA before Sharif Ishak came on at 2:30 to talk Super Regional. If you missed Sharif's interview with Tommy White on the field, go check Sharif's Twitter out, and you'll see Tommy White just gushing about his time at LSU thus far. And I thought that was a really powerful message from a guy who went elsewhere and came in the transfer portal. All of that is on demand. 1045ESPN.com's on demand tab, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google, and of course on YouTube. Well, we got our 2 channels. If you can subscribe to them, Hunt on LSU, All LSU Football, Hunt on Saints, All Saints Football. You subscribe to those, we will certainly appreciate it. We're coming back tomorrow, talking to Les Johns about Wake Forest, talking to Chris Demouy, and inching forward towards the College World Series. Matt's about to drive you home on After Further Review. We will see you tomorrow on the Hunt Palmer Show.